Hey, math class. This week we're going to kind of do things a little bit different. I'm going to walk us through a PowerPoint that I have about this week's topic. So 9.2 is adding, subtracting, and multiplying of polynomials. And then once we get through the PowerPoint, we'll go back to our journal and kind of add a page or two to it. So let me share my screen here. So our unit 2 is WAMAPS unit 9. And one thing that it doesn't talk about on here, which I'm going to take some notes on in the journal, is just that word polynomial. What it means is it's a equation that has, or maybe it's even an expression. That's what it is. It doesn't have an equal sign. So it's an expression that has more than 3 things in it, 4 or more nomials. So if we look at this first example here, so I have 3x to the third, I have 2x squared, I have a minus x, I have a minus 7. This is a polynomial. It has a lot of things going on. The second one here, x to the third minus 10x squared plus 8, it might be called a trinomial. It has 3 terms in it, 3 nomials. Anyway, there's also binomials and monomials, and we'll kind of look at that a little bit when we get to kind of adding to our math journal. But basically, there are these expressions that I have to work with and simplify them. Which is hard to do because I usually have a lot of variables in them that make it hard to kind of combine them. Well, not hard, but it makes it a challenge, and we can totally overcome that challenge. I find the easiest way to add and subtract polynomials is to do it vertically, like this example is showing us. And so I have these two, here I have a polynomial, here I have a trinomial, and I want to combine them. I'm simply going to line them up over top of each other with something that corresponds variable-wise. I don't know if I'm explaining this very well. Let's look at an example. I've got x to the third right here. I'm going to put it under 3x to the third because I can combine those guys up. They are like terms. These ones are x squared, so I can combine those together. This is a constant. These guys are both constants. They don't have any variable attached to them, so I can combine them. And then this poor guy, this little x that's right here, he doesn't have any friends, so he doesn't get combined with anybody. He just gets brought down. One thing that's important to pay attention in all of this is your positive and negative numbers skills are going to come back and be really important. So much like adding, when I have them vertically, if I'm adding something by hand, I start on the right and I just move to the left and kind of work my way through this problem. Okay, so I'm going to start on the right side and I'm going to move left. So I'm going to look at this -7 and I'm going to add it to this +8. And that's going to leave me with, I think that I can draw on here. Let me see. That's going to leave me with a +1. I confused myself there for a second. I need to find the difference between them, and because they have different signs, the bigger number gets gives the answer the sign. Like I said, this guy, he doesn't have any friends, so he's just going to come straight down. Oh, my handwriting is terrible on here. Positive 2x squared plus a negative 10x squared. So again, they have different signs. I'm going to find the difference between them, which will be 8x squared. And then the 10x is bigger, so that gets the sign. 3x to the third plus, this is basically 1x to the third. So 4x to the third, and it's positive. So there I have simplified my polynomials by adding them together. Let me click. Oh, how do I, okay. So there's our answer, 4x to the third minus 8x squared minus x plus 1. You can also add them horizontally. This is a method that might work for some people. So let me make this purple. So again, I'm going to kind of match up things. So I know that that's an x to the third. This I'll make this one a different color. That's x squared, x to the second. I have 2x and 12x right there, and then I have my constants. So I've just sort of kind of laid it out here so that I know what I'm combining with what. So there's only one that's purple, the 9x to the third. Then comes the 5x squared. That's the only one that's an x to the second. Now I've got some math to do because I have negative 2x plus 12x. So again, they have different signs. I'm going to find the difference between them, and the bigger number gives my answer its sign. So that'll be 10x. And then I have positive 1 minus 4. Again, they have different signs. I'm going to find the difference between them, and the bigger number gives the answer its sign. So again, you're going to really dig into this in WAMAP, and there'll be some notes to take in your workbook. There'll be some information kind of given in those videos. We're just kind of cruising through this quickly so that you can kind of get an overall sense of it before you kind of get to that. So you can do it vertically. I like the vertical way, or you can do it horizontally. And if you do it horizontally, I recommend different colors or something to help you keep things straight. That takes us to subtracting polynomials. And so this gets a little bit different because when we have the subtraction sign out front, what this does is it's like there's a negative 1 in front of my my second polynomial expression here, and it gets distributed to everything within that second polynomial. So it's going to turn it into negative 2x to the third. It's going to turn this into negative 6x squared. A negative times a negative is a positive, so that's going to turn into positive x and negative 1. So, and then I start on the right. Again, I start on the right and I move left. And again, I'm going to kind of like, look at my columns here. So 9 minus 1 is going to be 8. Negative 2x minus 1x will be negative 3x. Wait, I'm looking at the wrong one. Oh, Heidi. I'm not going to look at this one anymore. I'm just going to cross it out so that I don't confuse myself. Because that was confusing. Because see, down here I changed it to a plus because this negative distributed. Oh, okay. So negative 2x plus x will just be a negative x. I have negative 3x squared minus 6x squared. So those have the same sign. I combine them. They keep the negative sign. 8x to the third minus 2x to the third. 8 minus 2 is 6. And so there is my answer for that one. Minus x, yep. Wait, how do I turn? Let me clear all the drawings on there so that's nice and neat. Yeah. Again, you could deal with it horizontally. And again, it's like there's this little 1 that lives right there that then distributes itself throughout the second polynomial. So we have negative 3x squared plus minus x plus 4. And that gets combined with this nice little binomial over here. See how it has 1, 2 terms? So that makes it a binomial. So 2x, so 2x squared and 3x squared, I have 3x, and there's a negative x, and then I have a negative, or I'm at positive 4 right there. So I'm going to combine these guys. 2 minus 3 will be a negative 1. 3 minus 1 is 2x. And then he doesn't have anybody to combine with, which is a bummer. So negative x squared minus 2x plus 4. Let's go to the next screen here and see if we're right. Well, how'd they get plus 2x? Oh, duh. Oh my God. I'm going to have to remake this video. Look at that. I totally did that. The bigger one gives it the sign. See, there's a lot to keep track of. This is why we practice. This is why we practice. Okay, so I'm going to pause this video. We're going to come back. We're going to take some notes, and then we'll come back to this, and I'll try to explain the multiplying of polynomials a little bit better than I have explained adding and subtracting. So we'll take some notes in our journal, and then we'll come back.
Okay, so we've just talked about adding and subtracting polynomials. Add, subtract. We're going to talk about multiplying next. Polynomials. Ooh. Oh, there's Sammy, the video interrupter. For me, this is going to be pages 14 and 15. So I'm going to, excuse me. Okay, thank you. I'm going to flip over to pages 14 and 15. And I'm going to start on page 14. So this is add, subtract. Can you see his tail flipping around? Oh my gosh. Multiply polynomials. So again, we'll do our left-hand side of the page. Our goal is to do all of this. Hi, buddy. Can you get down, please? You're in our video again. Okay, come on. Thank you. Okay, so our goal is to add, subtract, and multiply polynomials. We're going to talk about the vocab. The vocabulary. And I also want you to think about what way is best for you. Best for you. Again, maybe take some COVID notes. I did not sleep well last night. That's going to be my note. Don't copy my note unless that's you too. I did not sleep well last night. And I think that you can see that in how affected I was by the positive and negative numbers in the first part of the video that we watched. Take some other notes about it, right? How do you feel about this polynomial thing? And then, as always, give yourself a confidence score, with 1 being, I don't know it yet, not yet mastered, and 10 being, I got this. So give yourself a score there. Gonna flip back here, do add, subtract, multiply polynomials across the top of this page. And so then, like I was talking about too, I want to talk about the vocabulary of it. So we have a monomial. The spelling sometimes gets me. Which is something like that. It just has one little term to it. We have binomials. And it looks like that. 5x squared plus 4x. It has 2 terms to it. We have trinomials, which is 5x squared plus 4x minus 10. It's got 3 terms to it. And then the polynomials that we're dealing with, right? They really are anything, so they're 4 or more, right? And so look at this, like mono, that suffix means 1. Bi, this suffix means 2, like a bicycle, has 2 wheels. Tri, like a tricycle, it has 3 wheels. So this poly prefix, that indicates 4 or more terms. So maybe 5x squared plus 4x minus 10 now has a friend out front, which is 3x to the 3rd. So this is, you're going to see this language in WAMAP, and yeah, it's just sort of good to know that this is the vocabulary. But technically they all are polynomials, technically. When we talk about, polynomials, we're including tri, bi, and monomials in that. Anyway, okay, so now I'm going to draw myself a line here, and I'm going to make myself a place to kind of take some notes about the things that we have talked about. So I've got about 8 inches. So I'm going to do that one till there, maybe. And then maybe go right here. I'm just going to divide it into kind of 3 different spots. And so up here, this is going to be adding the polynomials. And again, I showed you 2 different ways. I want you to pick. I want you to think about what you think is going to be best for you. So I like the vertical way for adding polynomials. And I'm just going to take from our other video, I'm going to take take this one example, x to the 3rd minus 10x squared, and then plus 8. And I'm just going to make some notes to myself about, kind of how things go and what I liked about it the most. If you have to go back and watch the other video to do this, that's totally cool. But I just sort of like this vertical way. And using the columns. And sometimes I've even been known, I get really confused, especially if it's a really long polynomial. I have been known to turn my paper like this and kind of use some very tiny columns that then I can, just keep myself really organized with these teeny tiny columns. Now, this might not work for everybody, But see, it's like, it's nice and straight and clean. I can keep track of my information kind of that way. So I'm putting, one of the terms and then the sign in the next column so that I can keep everything really lined up. Same with subtracting. I like the vertical way. You don't have to do it the same way as me. If you watched the vertical way and it made absolutely no sense to you and you want to do it the horizontal way, then you go back and you take those notes. You put that into your journal. This is a book that you are writing to yourself. I want it to be helpful for you, so that you can refer back and know that it's written in a language to yourself. This is what I feel like is the most important thing. I'm going to write out the problem, like how it would be in WOMAP here. Again, this is from the video. And so again, I've got this little negative, so it's going to distribute itself out. So it's going to be negative 2x to the third. It's going to be negative 6x squared. It's going to be positive x, and it's going to be negative 1. And then I'm just going to combine these. Once I distribute this negative, I like to think about it as now I'm adding them together, because I'm not really subtracting anymore. I've moved that subtraction into the second one, and so then I can just combine them like I did with adding. So again, I've kind of got my columns here to keep myself from getting confused or from getting less confused. That's negative 9x squared, and then 8 minus 2, 6x to the third. Okay, so we're going to come back later. We'll watch the second part, which is multiplication, and we'll come back and we'll take some notes.